In focus now, Vivek Ramaswamy, Republican candidate for governor in the great state of Ohio. And we will get into President Trump's crime crackdown in just a moment. I want to start with a massive Turning Point USA event in Montana last night. We have seen Charlie Kirk's vision growing, just like his widow, Erica Kirk, prayed about and is delivering. Vivek, you were there. We got some of it, along with Montana Governor Greg Gianforte. Let's watch a few minutes from that Montana event.
He will be sorely missed, but the work of Turning Point USA continues and has been amplified by his passing. The question for each of us tonight is, how do we continue Charlie's work? Charlie was not a college graduate. He educated himself, and frankly, better than most college graduates. He disciplined himself to learn economics, history, philosophy, theology. He read what the great minds had written.
For years, college students with conservative views, like many of you, were taught to shut up, sit down, and keep their views to themselves. Thanks to one man, over the last year, we reached a new dawn in this country. Young conservatives, like many of you, started to feel free to speak in the open again. If we have the courage to stand for what is right, what is true, what is good, what is beautiful, that has always been the American way.
Vivek, it is great to see you and listen to some of those words from last night. Talk to me about that event and what you really want people to walk away from who are young, who are missing Charlie and his vision.
Look, what we talked about last night, Harris, is the way we carry on Charlie's legacy, and frankly, the legacy of our founding fathers, is to ask what we actually stand for. And I think this is the tough question for the future fork in the road for the conservative movement. Do we care about defeating the left, or do we care about actually saving the country? And the question we answered last night resoundingly is, we care about saving the country. This isn't about owning the libs. This is about owning responsibility for our nation. Individual, family, nation, and God. Stand for that instead of just worrying about race, gender, sexuality, or climate. And I think a lot of those young people, Harris, I understand why Gen Z has lost their conviction in the American dream. Housing feels out of reach. Young workers are working hard, yet they feel like they're not actually able to get ahead. Free speech even feels like an illusion when the guy who gave you inspiration was assassinated in cold blood. But my message last night to Gen Z was, you still can't be cynical about our country, because this is the last best hope we have on earth, and it is our job as leaders to revive a new American dream in this country. Not what we're running from, but now the question is, what are we running to? It is to that new American dream, and that's the vision we laid out last night. And it was a beautiful discussion with about an hour and a half of Q&A that followed.
Yeah, you know, I have interviewed you many times. We did a Voters' Voices group here live in studio. All the things. I have to ask you, in politics and what they are today, and in teaching those young people, how do you stay so positive and so optimistic and get them to do it?
Well, I'm guided by gratitude to this country. You think about it, my parents came to this country nearly half a century ago with nothing. In a single generation, I've gone on to found successful companies, married my lovely wife, Apurva, who you know, who's a successful throat surgeon, herself the kid of immigrants who came here with nothing to their name. And we're raising our kids now in circumstances that our parents would have never imagined 45 years ago. And to me, the extraordinary thing about that story in this country, Harris, is it's not that extraordinary in the United States of America. Look at people at the highest levels of this country, from politics to business. These are people who have lived that American dream. So I know it exists. I know it's real because I've lived it. I'm grateful and I'm guided by gratitude. And I want to share that gratitude with young people who, many of whom are understandably struggling. But we got to revive that new American dream where we bring down the cost of housing by building more homes, by actually celebrating free speech, and culturally as conservatives. And I really think this is the harder part for us. Hold ourselves to our own standards. Don't play by the rules of the other side. Silencing, canceling, berating. No, we don't do that. We hold ourselves to the standards of our founding fathers, the soul of our country. That's harder to do. But I think that's our call to action going forward, and that's what we spent most of last night talking about in Montana.
Well, look, we're going to apply that optimism to something that President Trump is trying mightily to accomplish, and that is to crack down on crime, particularly in blue-led cities. Chicago and Portland right now in focus. A new opinion piece argues Democrats have only themselves to blame for Trump's National Guard patrols. And we led into this with a bit of reporting. This is now Trump against the criminals and the Democrats against Trump. Like that, they're not fighting the right people here.
Look, I think it's, on one hand, I don't disagree with your framing. It's Trump against the criminals. In reality, Harris, it's 90% of this country against criminals, okay? 90% of us agree that you want to be able to enjoy a walk in the inner city or the downtown of your city without fear of looking over your shoulder for being assaulted or beaten up or, God forbid, even murdered. So I don't think that's a left versus right issue. That is a right versus wrong issue.
Well, the Dems do.
And in keeping the spirit of positivity and solutions, we can fix this, right? Some hard facts on violent crime in the cities. It's just worth remembering this. The vast majority of crimes are committed by a tiny, tiny, tiny number of people. And even if you look at the locations of those crimes in a city, over 50% of crimes are committed in a 5% or less location in a city. So the fact of the matter is, we know how to solve this. Precision policing gets this done. Most of us agree. And the fact that the Democratic Party is held hostage to a tiny fringe of the country, of their base, is a shame. But it's up to our side to lead.
Yeah. Well, policy is coming from one side, your side, the Republicans and the president, just arguing and a whole lot of name calling and sometimes some violence from the other side. Vivek Ramaswamy, great to have you in focus today. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.